She told herself she could handle coming back to Chicago. She told herself 9 years was long enough to forget Adrian Voss. She told herself walking into his bedroom at midnight was an accident. She was wrong on all 3 counts. Now he's blocking the door, and the look in his eyes says he's done pretending the past stayed buried. Some fires don't go out. They just wait. If you want to know what happens when you can't run anymore, stay with me until the end. Hit like and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. The flight into O'Hare felt longer than it should have. Elena Hayes pressed her forehead against the window, watching the city lights spread out below like scattered embers. 9 years. She'd been gone 9 years, and Chicago looked exactly the same. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. She'd left at 21 with a suitcase, a one-way ticket, and a heart that felt like it had been put through a blender. She was coming back at 30 with a job offer she couldn't refuse, and a brother who'd made it clear he needed her. The suitcase was nicer now. The heart was another story. Her phone buzzed as the plane touched down. Marcus. Car's waiting. Don't make me send someone in. Elena smiled despite herself. Her brother hadn't changed. Marcus Hayes didn't ask. He arranged. He didn't suggest. He expected. And when he said he needed her in Chicago, working inside the organization he'd built from their father's ashes, she knew saying no wasn't really an option. Not because he'd force her, because she owed him. She'd always owed him. She texted back a thumbs up and grabbed her bag from the overhead bin. The driver was waiting exactly where Marcus said he'd be. Black sedan, tinted windows, the kind of car that screamed, "Don't look too closely." Elena slid into the back seat and tried not to think about the last time she'd been in a car like this. Tried not to think about who'd been sitting next to her. "Welcome home, Miss Hayes." "Thanks." She didn't recognize the driver, which was probably the point. Marcus cycled through people. Trust was expensive in his world. The city slid past the windows as they drove. She recognized neighborhoods, intersections, the corner where she used to grab coffee before 8 a.m. classes. It all felt like a dream she'd had once and then forgotten on purpose. Her phone buzzed again. "Marcus. Dinner tomorrow. Just us. We need to talk strategy." "Elena. Strategy for what?" "Marcus. For keeping you out of trouble." She almost laughed. If Marcus thought she was coming back to Chicago to cause trouble, he didn't know her as well as he thought. She was coming back to work, to help, to prove she could stand in the same city as her past and not fall apart, to prove she could be in the same room as Adrian Voss and feel absolutely nothing. The apartment Marcus had arranged for her was downtown, high floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. It was sleek and impersonal and exactly the kind of place that didn't feel like home. That was fine. Elena wasn't looking for home. She was looking for a reset. She dropped her suitcase by the door and walked to the windows. The city stretched out in every direction, alive and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Adrian was living his life, running his part of Marcus's operation, doing whatever it was he did when he wasn't haunting her memory. She hadn't asked Marcus if Adrian still worked for him. She didn't need to. Adrian Voss didn't leave. He was Chicago. He was the kind of man who planted roots in concrete and dared the world to move him. Elena pulled the curtains shut and went to bed. But the next evening, Marcus picked her up himself. That was unusual. He didn't drive. He had people for that. But when Elena came down to the lobby, there he was, leaning against a black SUV with his arms crossed and a look on his face that said he was already 3 steps ahead of whatever she was thinking. "You look good," he said, pulling her into a hug. "You look tired." "I am tired." He let her go and opened the passenger door. "That's why you're here." They drove to a restaurant on the north side, the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu and didn't take reservations unless you were someone. Marcus was someone. They were seated immediately, tucked into a corner booth with enough distance from the other tables that conversation stayed private. "So," Marcus said once they'd ordered, "you ready to talk about the real reason you came back?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "I thought the real reason was you asking me to." "That's a reason, not the reason." She took a sip of water and didn't answer right away. Marcus was good at this, waiting, watching, reading the silences. He'd learned it from their father, back when their father was still alive and still running things. Marcus had taken everything their father built and made it bigger, sharper, more efficient. He didn't deal in violence unless he had to. He dealt in leverage. I came back because you needed help, Elena said finally, and because I was ready. Ready for what? To stop running. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Good, because I need you focused. I need you sharp. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. What? Adrian's still here. Elena's stomach dropped, but she kept her face neutral. I figured. And you're okay with that? I don't have a choice, do I? You always have a choice. Marcus leaned back, his expression unreadable. But if you're going to work with me, you're going to see him. A lot. He runs the South Side operations. He's at every major meeting. I get it. Do you? Elena met her brother's eyes. Yes. I'm not 21 anymore, Marcus. I can handle being in the same city as him. I can handle being professional. Professional. Marcus almost smiled. That's one word for it. What's that supposed to mean? It means I remember what you two were like. And I remember how it ended. That was a long time ago. Not long enough if you're still calling it it. Elena didn't have an answer for that. She looked down at her menu and pretended to care about the appetizers. Marcus sighed. Look, I'm not trying to dig up old graves. I'm trying to make sure you know what you're walking into. Adrian's different now, harder. He doesn't talk about what happened, and I don't ask. But if you think you can just show up and pretend the past didn't happen, I'm not pretending anything. Elena's voice came out sharper than she intended. I know the past happened. I know what I did. And I know he probably hates me for it, but that doesn't change why I'm here. I'm here to work. That's it. Marcus watched her for another beat, then nodded. Okay. Just remember, I need both of you functional. I can't have old drama screwing up my operations. There won't be any drama. Good. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because if there is, I'm putting you on opposite ends of the city and pretending you don't know each other. Dinner was fine after that. They talked strategy, territory, who was reliable and who needed watching. Marcus laid out what he needed from her. Financial oversight, clean books, a legitimate face for the parts of the business that couldn't afford to look dirty. Elena took notes mentally and asked the right questions. This was what she was good at. Numbers, structure, making chaos look organized. By the time Marcus dropped her off, it was almost midnight. Get some sleep, he said. First meeting's Friday. I'll send you the details. Will he be there? Marcus didn't have to ask who she meant. Probably. Elena nodded and got out of the car. She made it all the way up to her apartment before the anxiety hit. Not panic. She didn't do panic anymore, but a low, simmering dread that sat in her chest like a stone. She poured herself a drink and sat by the window, staring out at the city. Somewhere out there, Adrian Voss was living his life. And in 3 days, she was going to have to see him and pretend she didn't still remember the exact sound of his voice when he told her he loved her. Friday came too fast. Elena dressed carefully. Tailored black pants, white blouse, blazer. Professional, untouchable. She pulled her hair back, minimal jewelry, no room for distraction. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw exactly what she wanted to see. Someone who had her life together. The meeting was at one of Marcus's properties, a renovated warehouse on the west side that looked abandoned from the outside and ran like a fortress on the inside. Elena had been there once, years ago, back when she was still trying to understand what her brother actually did for a living. She remembered feeling out of place. She felt the same way now. Security waved her through without checking ID. Apparently Marcus had already sent word. She took the stairs to the 3rd floor and followed the sound of voices to a conference room at the end of the hall. The door was half open. She could see Marcus at the head of the table, talking to 2 men she didn't recognize. A woman with short dark hair sat across from them, typing on a laptop, and at the far end of the table, facing away from the door, Elena stopped breathing. She knew that posture, the way he sat, shoulders back, arms loose, like he was ready to move at any second. She knew the shape of him even from behind. Adrian Voss. 9 years, and her body still recognized him before her brain caught up. She forced herself to breathe, forced herself to walk into the room. Marcus looked up and smiled. There she is. Everyone, this is my sister, Elena. She's going to be handling the financial side moving forward. The 2 men nodded. The woman glanced up and said, Nice to meet you. And Adrian turned around. For a second, the world went completely still. He looked older, sharper. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, and his jaw was harder, like he'd spent 9 years clenching it. He wore a dark shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and he looked at her like she was a stranger. No, worse than a stranger. He looked at her like she was a problem he'd already solved and didn't need to revisit. "Elena," he said. His voice was exactly the same. "Adrian." She kept her tone even, professional. She sat down across from him and didn't let herself look at him again. The meeting started. Marcus ran through updates, territories, revenue, a shipment that had gone sideways and needed cleaning up. Elena took notes and asked questions when it made sense. She was good at this. She could do this. She could feel Adrian's eyes on her the entire time. When the meeting ended, people filtered out in pairs. The woman with the laptop left first. The two men followed. Marcus caught Elena's arm as she stood. "You good?" "Fine." "You sure?" "Yes, Marcus, I'm fine." He didn't look convinced, but he let her go. Elena grabbed her bag and headed for the door. She made it 3 steps into the hallway before a hand caught her wrist. She turned. Adrian was standing too close, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." "Yeah, we do." Elena pulled her wrist free. "I'm not doing this with you." "Doing what?" "This. Whatever this is. I'm here to work, Adrian, that's it." "You think it's that simple?" "I think it has to be." He stared at her for a long moment, and she hated how familiar his eyes were. Dark, sharp. The kind of eyes that saw too much and gave away nothing. "You left," he said quietly. "I know." "You didn't say goodbye." "I know. And now you're back, and I'm just supposed to... What? Pretend it didn't happen?" Elena's chest tightened. "I'm not asking you to pretend anything. I'm asking you to let me do my job. And if I can't, then that's your problem, not mine." She walked away before he could say anything else. She didn't look back. She made it to her car, locked the doors, and sat there for 5 full minutes trying to remember how to breathe normally. It was fine. She was fine. She could do this. The next 2 weeks were a test in endurance. Elena threw herself into the work. She reviewed financial records, restructured accounts, identified gaps where money was leaking and tightened them. She met with Marcus daily, sometimes twice a day, going over numbers until her eyes blurred. It was easier than thinking. Adrian was everywhere. Not physically, he didn't show up at her apartment or ambush her in hallways, but his presence was constant. He was in every meeting, every briefing, every decision Marcus made. He ran the South Side like it was his own kingdom, and from what Elena could see, he was good at it. Better than good. He was efficient, ruthless when he needed to be, and loyal in a way that made Marcus trust him completely. That was the part that stung. Adrian had stayed. He'd built something here. He'd become indispensable. And Elena had run. She tried not to think about it. She tried to focus on the work, on proving she belonged here, on showing Marcus she could handle it. But every time she walked into a room and saw Adrian, every time their eyes met across a table, she felt the weight of 9 years pressing down on her chest. He didn't talk to her, didn't acknowledge her outside of work, and that should have been a relief. It wasn't. 3 weeks in, Marcus threw a party. Not a party, exactly, a gathering. A chance for key players to meet Elena in a less formal setting, to see that she wasn't just Marcus's sister, but someone who understood the business. It was smart, strategic, exactly the kind of move Marcus excelled at. Elena hated every second of it. The party was at Marcus's house, a sprawling estate north of the city that used to belong to their father. Elena had avoided coming here since she got back. Too many memories. But Marcus insisted, and she didn't have a good excuse to say no. She arrived late on purpose, hoping to slip in unnoticed. That lasted about 30 seconds. "Elena!" A man she vaguely recognized from one of the meetings waved her over. "Come meet some people." She smiled and played the part. Shook hands, made small talk, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. She was good at this too, performing, pretending everything was fine. She was halfway through a conversation about tax shelters when she felt it. That prickling awareness at the back of her neck, the sense that someone was watching her. She turned her head slightly and saw him. Adrian was standing by the bar, a drink in his hand, talking to a woman Elena didn't recognize. He wasn't looking at her, but she knew. She knew he was aware of exactly where she was. She excused herself and went to find the bathroom. It was on the second floor, down a hallway she remembered from childhood. She locked the door behind her and leaned against the sink, staring at her reflection. Pull it together. She splashed cold water on her face, fixed her lipstick, and took a breath. When she opened the door, Adrian was standing in the hallway. Elena's heart slammed into her ribs. "What are you doing?" "Waiting for you." "Why?" "Because we need to talk, and you keep running away." "I'm not running. You've been avoiding me for 3 weeks." "I've been working." "Bullshit!" Elena's temper flared. "What do you want from me, Adrian?" "I want to know why you came back." "I told you. You told me you're here to work. I don't believe you." "I don't care what you believe." He stepped closer, and she hated how her body reacted, pulse quickening, breath catching. He was too close. She could smell his cologne, the same one he used to wear, and it made her feel like she was 21 again and stupid enough to think love was enough. "You left me," Adrian said quietly. "No warning, no explanation. You just disappeared." "I didn't—" "Yes, you did." His voice was hard now, controlled. "And now you're back, and you won't even look at me." "Because looking at you hurts." The words came out before she could stop them, raw and unfiltered. Adrian went still. Elena closed her eyes. "I didn't come back here to dig up the past. I came back because Marcus needed me. That's the only reason." "You're lying." "I'm not—" "Then why won't you look at me?" She opened her eyes and met his gaze head on. "Because I spent 9 years trying to forget you, and it didn't work. And I don't know what to do with that." The silence stretched between them, taut and fragile. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You think it worked for me?" "I don't know." "It didn't." He took another step closer, and now there was barely a foot of space between them. "I tried, Elena. I tried to move on. I tried to hate you, and I couldn't do either." Her breath hitched. "Adrian, I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying it because you need to know. You don't get to come back here and pretend we're strangers. We're not. I know that." "Then stop running." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him it wasn't that simple, that there were reasons she left, that staying away had been the right choice, but the words wouldn't come. Because standing here, this close to him, all she could think about was how much she'd missed this. Missed him. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because Marcus isn't here. He's downstairs." "He's not in this hallway." Adrian's voice dropped, rougher now. "And for once in 9 years, I'm standing in front of you and you're not running. So tell me the truth. Why did you leave?" Elena's throat tightened. "Because I loved you too much, and it was going to destroy everything." The confession hung in the air between them, brutal and honest. Adrian stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was so gentle, it almost broke her. "You think leaving didn't destroy me?" he asked quietly. "I didn't know what else to do." "You could have stayed." "I couldn't. You know I couldn't." He shook his head, his hand still lingering near her face. "I know Marcus made it hard. I know he didn't approve. But you didn't even give me a chance to fight for you." "There was nothing to fight for." "He's my brother, Adrian. He's all the family I have left." "And I was nothing?" "You were everything." The words came out choked. "That's why I left." Adrian's hand dropped. He stepped back and the distance felt like a canyon. "I should go," Elena said. "Yeah, you should." She walked past him, her legs shaking, and didn't let herself look back. She made it downstairs and out the front door before the tears started. She didn't cry. She wouldn't let herself. But her chest felt like it was caving in. She got in her car and drove. No destination, just away. She ended up parked by the river, staring out at the water. Her phone buzzed, Marcus probably, wondering where she went. But she didn't check it. She'd been back in Chicago for 3 weeks, and already everything was falling apart. She should have known better, should have known that seeing Adrian again would tear open every wound she'd spent 9 years trying to close. Should have known that distance didn't kill what they had. It just buried it. And now she didn't know what to do. Because Adrian was right. She couldn't keep running. But she didn't know how to stay either. Elena didn't go back to Marcus's house that night. She texted him some excuse about not feeling well and drove back to her apartment, where she sat in the dark and tried to convince herself that what happened in the hallway didn't mean anything. It didn't work. By Monday morning, she'd built a new strategy. Avoid Adrian completely. Different meetings, different schedules, different everything. If Marcus noticed, he didn't say anything. He just kept piling work on her desk, and she kept burying herself in it. For 4 days, it almost worked. Then Marcus called her into his office on Friday afternoon with an assignment that shattered her carefully constructed distance. "I need you to go south," he said, not looking up from his computer. Elena paused in the doorway. "South where?" "Adrian's territory. There's a discrepancy in the numbers from one of the distribution points. I need you to audit it in person." Her stomach dropped. "Can't someone else?" "No." Marcus finally looked at her. "You're the one I trust with the books, and this needs to be handled quietly. Adrian's already expecting you." "You told him I was coming?" "An hour ago." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell Marcus to send literally anyone else, but she could see in his expression that this wasn't a request. It was a test. He was watching to see if she could handle being professional, if she could work with Adrian without everything falling apart. "Fine," she said. "When?" "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll send you the address." She left his office before she could say something she'd regret. The address Marcus sent her that night was for a warehouse in Bridgeport, deep in the heart of Adrian's operation. Elena had never been there, but she knew the area, industrial, isolated, the kind of place where people minded their own business because asking questions was dangerous. She arrived at 9:55, which gave her exactly 5 minutes to compose herself before facing him. The warehouse looked abandoned from the outside, just like Marcus's place, but the security camera above the door said otherwise. Elena hit the buzzer and waited. The door opened. Not Adrian, a younger guy, maybe mid-20s, with sharp eyes and a gun poorly concealed under his jacket. "Elena Hayes? That's me." He stepped aside. "Third floor." "He's waiting." She climbed the stairs slowly, buying time. Her heels echoed in the stairwell, too loud in the silence. By the time she reached the third floor, her heart was hammering against her ribs. Adrian was standing by a metal desk, reviewing something on a tablet. He looked up when she walked in, and for a second, neither of them spoke. "You're early," he said. "I'm on time." "Same thing." He set the tablet down as, "The files are over here." He gestured to a stack of ledgers on a side table. Elena walked over, keeping a careful distance between them, and started flipping through the records. Numbers, dates, shipment codes. Everything looked clean at first glance, but Marcus wouldn't have sent her if it was that simple. "What am I looking for?" she asked. "Revenue's down 3% over the last 2 months. No clear reason." Elena frowned. 3% isn't much. It is when it's consistent. Someone's skimming, or the product's walking out the back door, or we've got a leak somewhere in the chain. She pulled out her laptop and started cross-referencing the physical records with the digital files Marcus had sent her. Adrian watched for a minute, then went back to his tablet. They worked in silence, the only sound the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead and the occasional click of Elena's keyboard. It should have been fine. Professional. Exactly what she'd told Marcus it would be. But the tension in the room was suffocating. After 20 minutes, Adrian spoke without looking up. "You gonna keep pretending I'm not here?" Elena didn't stop typing. "I'm working." "So am I. Doesn't mean we can't talk." "We don't have anything to talk about." "We have 9 years to talk about." "Not while I'm on the clock." He set the tablet down with more force than necessary. "You're really gonna do this?" "Do what?" "Act like we're strangers." Elena finally looked up. "We are strangers, Adrian. We haven't spoken in 9 years. People change." "Not that much." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do." He crossed his arms, leaning back against the desk. "You still bite your lip when you're concentrating. You still tuck your hair behind your ear when you're frustrated. You still—" "Stop." "Why?" "Because this isn't—" She exhaled sharply. "I'm here to do a job. That's it." Adrian stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Fine. Do your job." He walked out of the room. Elena sat there staring at the empty doorway and hated how much his absence hurt. She forced herself to focus. The numbers didn't lie, and after another hour of digging, she found the problem. A delivery driver who'd been reporting full shipments but only delivering 97%. Small enough to slip under the radar, big enough to add up. She wrote up her findings and went looking for Adrian. He was downstairs in what looked like a break room, drinking coffee and talking to two men she didn't recognize. He saw her and dismissed them with a nod. "Find it?" he asked. "Yeah, one of your drivers is skimming. I flagged the account. You'll want to handle it before it gets worse." Adrian took the report she handed him and scanned it. His jaw tightened. 3 months. Son of a bitch has been doing this for 3 months. Looks like it. I'll take care of it. He set the report down and looked at her. Thanks. Just doing my job. Right. His tone was flat. Your job. Elena turned to leave. Wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. Marcus is throwing another event next week, Adrian said. Some kind of investor dinner. You'll be there. I know. So will I. I assumed. And we're going to have to sit at the same table and pretend we're fine. Elena turned around slowly. What's your point? My point is this, he gestured between them, isn't working. We can't keep avoiding each other. It's only going to make things worse. What do you want me to do, Adrian? I want you to stop running every time we're in the same room. I'm not running. You left the second you finished the audit. Because my work here is done. Bullshit. He stepped closer, and Elena's pulse spiked. You're doing the same thing you did 9 years ago. The second things get hard, you disappear. That's not fair. Isn't it? Elena's temper flared. You have no idea why I left. Then tell me. I already did. No. You gave me some line about loving me too much. That's not a reason. It's an excuse. It's the truth. Then why didn't you fight for us? His voice rose, raw and unfiltered. Why didn't you tell Marcus to deal with it? Why didn't you choose me? Because choosing you meant losing him. The words exploded out of her, and suddenly she was shouting too. He's my brother, Adrian. He's the only family I have. And you were... I was what? You were his best friend, his right hand, the person he trusted most in the world. And I was the stupid little sister who fell in love with you and screwed everything up. Adrian went still. Elena's chest heaved. She hadn't meant to say that, hadn't meant to let any of it out, but now it was there, hanging between them, and she couldn't take it back. Marcus told me to stay away from you, she said quietly, a week before I left. He said if I didn't, it was going to tear everything apart. His operation, his trust, everything he'd built. And I looked at him and realized he was right, so I left. Because staying would have destroyed all of us. Adrian stared at her, his expression unreadable. Did you ever think about asking me what I wanted? It didn't matter what you wanted. Like hell it didn't. You would have chosen me over him. I know you would have. And then he would have lost you, and it would have been my fault. So you made the choice for both of us. Elena's throat tightened. Yes. And you thought that was better? I thought it was the only option. Adrian shook his head slowly. You were wrong. Maybe, but I can't go back and change it. No, you can't. He took a step back, putting distance between them again. But you're here now, and we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. I know. Do you? Yes. He studied her for a long moment, and she couldn't tell what he was thinking. Then he nodded. Go home, Elena. I'll see you next week. She left without another word. The investor dinner was exactly as terrible as Elena expected. Marcus had rented out an entire restaurant, filled it with people who had too much money and too many questions, and expected Elena to smile and play the part of the competent, trustworthy financial advisor. She wore a black dress, heels that hurt, and a mask of calm professionalism that took every ounce of energy to maintain. Adrian was already there when she arrived. He was talking to an older man in an expensive suit, nodding along to whatever story was being told, and he looked completely at ease. Like this was easy for him. Like standing in the same room as her didn't cost him anything. Elena hated him for it. She found her seat at the main table, right across from Adrian, of course, and tried not to think about how the universe was actively conspiring against her. Dinner started. Conversations flowed. Marcus worked the room like he was born to it, shaking hands and making promises he'd probably keep. Elena answered questions about financial projections and tax strategies and managed to sound competent despite the fact that her brain was only half present. The other half was focused on Adrian. He barely looked at her, spoke to the people on either side of him, laughed at the right moments, played his role perfectly. But every so often, she'd catch him watching her out of the corner of his eye, and the weight of his attention was almost unbearable. Halfway through the main course, the man next to Elena, some investor from New York, leaned over and said, "So, how long have you been working with your brother?" "Just a few weeks," Elena said. "I was out of the state for a while. What brought you back?" "Family," she smiled. "Couldn't stay away forever." "That's sweet. Marcus speaks highly of you." "Does he?" "Oh, yes. Says you're the smartest person he knows. High praise coming from him." Elena glanced at her brother, who was deep in conversation across the table and definitely not paying attention to her. "He's being generous." "I doubt that." The man took a sip of wine. "And what about you and Adrian? I heard you two go way back." Elena's stomach clenched. "We've known each other a long time." "He's a good man. Loyal. Marcus is lucky to have him." "Yes, he is." The man seemed to sense he'd hit a nerve because he changed the subject, but the damage was done. Elena's carefully maintained composure was cracking, and she needed air. She excused herself and headed for the bathroom. The hallway was blessedly empty. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes, willing her heart to slow down. "You okay?" She opened her eyes. Adrian was standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, watching her with that same unreadable expression. "I'm fine," she said. "You don't look fine." "Well, I am." He didn't move. "Guy at the table was asking about us." "I know. What did you tell him?" "That we've known each other a long time, which is true." Adrian nodded slowly. "You think people are going to keep asking?" "Probably." "And what are we going to say?" Elena pushed off the wall. "We're going to say we're colleagues. That's all we are now." "That's all?" "Yes." He stepped closer, and her breath caught. "You really believe that?" "I have to." "Why?" "Because the alternative is impossible." "Is it?" Elena's pulse was racing now. "Adrian, don't..." "Don't what?" "Don't ask if you still feel it, because I do. Every time you walk into a room, every time I hear your voice, I feel it, and I know you do too." "It doesn't matter." "Why not?" "Because nothing's changed. Marcus doesn't control your life, Elena. He's my brother. And I'm..." Adrian stopped, his jaw tightening. "What am I to you?" Elena's throat closed. She couldn't answer that, couldn't put into words what he was, what he'd always been, because saying it out loud would make it real, and she wasn't strong enough for that. "We should go back," she whispered. "Not until you answer me." "Adrian, what am I to you? You're the person I can't stop thinking about." The confession tore out of her, desperate and raw. "You're the reason I stayed away for 9 years. You're the reason I came back. And you're the one thing I can't have, no matter how much I want to." Adrian stared at her, his expression shifting into something she couldn't name. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. He backed her against the wall and kissed her like 9 years hadn't passed, like they were still 21 and reckless and convinced that love was enough. Elena's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and she kissed him back just as hard because she'd forgotten how this felt, how he felt. And now that she remembered, she didn't know how to stop. His hands were in her hair, on her waist, everywhere, and she was drowning in him, in the taste of him, in the way he said her name like a prayer against her mouth. And then footsteps echoed in the hallway. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Adrian stepped back, running a hand through his hair, and Elena pressed herself against the wall, trying to look like she hadn't just fallen apart. A waiter walked past, barely glancing at them. When he was gone, Elena looked at Adrian and saw her own panic reflected in his eyes. "That can't happen again," she said. "I know. I mean it." "So do I." But neither of them moved. Elena forced herself to walk away first. She went back to the table, sat down, and picked up her wine glass with shaking hands. Across from her, Adrian returned a moment later, his face carefully blank. The rest of the dinner passed in a haze. Elena smiled when she was supposed to, answered questions, pretended everything was fine. But all she could think about was the feeling of Adrian's mouth on hers and the way her entire world had tilted in the space of a kiss. When the night finally ended, she went home and didn't sleep. The next morning, Marcus called. "We need to talk," he said. Elena's heart stopped. "About what?" "About you and Adrian." She sat down on the edge of her bed, her hands suddenly cold. "What about us?" "Don't play dumb, Elena. Someone saw you two in the hallway last night. We were just talking." "That's not what I heard." Elena closed her eyes. "Marcus, I told you to keep it professional." "I am." "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're making the same mistakes you made 9 years ago. That's not fair, isn't it?" His voice was hard now. "I brought you back here because I needed your help. Not because I wanted to watch you blow up my operation over a guy you couldn't let go of. He's not just some guy. I know exactly who he is, and I know what happens when you two get tangled up together. It ends badly. For everyone." Elena's chest tightened. "Nothing's happening." "Keep it that way." Marcus paused. "I'm serious, Elena. I need both of you functional. I can't afford this kind of drama." "There won't be any drama." "Good. Because if there is, I'm pulling you out." He hung up before she could respond. Elena sat there, staring at her phone, and felt the walls closing in. She couldn't do this. Couldn't be in the same city as Adrian and pretend she didn't want him. Couldn't keep lying to Marcus about something that was already spiraling out of control. But she also couldn't leave. Not again. So she did the only thing she could think of. She threw herself into work and avoided Adrian like her life depended on it. For 2 weeks, it almost worked. She buried herself in audits, reports, meetings that didn't involve him. Marcus seemed satisfied. The tension eased, and then everything went sideways. It started with a phone call at 2 in the morning. Elena's phone buzzed on the nightstand, dragging her out of sleep. She grabbed it without thinking, her voice thick. "Hello? Elena, it's me. Adrian." She sat up, instantly awake. "What's wrong?" "I need you to come to the South Warehouse, now." "Why? What happened?" "Just come. And don't tell Marcus." He hung up. Elena stared at the phone, her heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at her to call Marcus, to ask what the hell was going on. But Adrian's voice had been tight, controlled, the way it got when something was seriously wrong. She got dressed and drove. The warehouse was dark when she arrived, except for a single light on the 3rd floor. Elena climbed the stairs, her pulse racing, and found Adrian standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by open crates. He looked up when she walked in, and his expression was grim. "What is this?" she asked. "A problem." She walked closer and looked into one of the crates. Packages. Dozens of them, wrapped in plastic. Her stomach dropped. "Adrian, it's not what we ordered," he said. "Someone swapped the shipment. We were supposed to get product. This is..." He gestured at the crates. "Something else entirely." Elena's mind raced. Who knew about this delivery? 4 people. Me, Marcus, and 2 drivers. And you think one of them, I don't know what I think. But if this gets out, if Marcus finds out the shipment's compromised, he's going to assume I screwed up, and I didn't. Elena looked at him. "Why did you call me?" "Because you're the only person I trust right now." The words hit her like a punch. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that calling her was a mistake. But the look in his eyes stopped her. "What do you need?" she asked quietly. "I need to figure out who did this before Marcus finds out. Can you check the transaction records? See if there's anything unusual?" Elena nodded. "I'll need access to the full ledger." "You've got it." They worked through the night, pulling records, tracing routes, following the money. By dawn, Elena had found it, a payment authorization that didn't match any of the usual codes. Someone had rerouted the shipment and covered their tracks. Almost. "Got it," she said, turning her laptop toward Adrian. "This code, it's not in our system." Adrian leaned over her shoulder, his jaw tight. "That's an external authorization. Someone outside the operation? Or someone trying to look like they are?" Elena's stomach twisted. "Adrian, if someone's setting you up, then we need to find them before Marcus does. We need to tell him. Not yet. Adrian, Not yet, Elena. He looked at her, and the desperation in his eyes made her chest ache. If I go to Marcus with this, and I'm wrong, he'll think I'm losing control. And if I'm right, and someone's actively working against me, telling him puts a target on both our backs. So what do we do? Adrian exhaled slowly. We find out who's behind it, quietly, and then we handle it. Elena knew this was a bad idea. Knew keeping secrets from Marcus was exactly the kind of thing that would blow up in their faces. But looking at Adrian, seeing the raw trust in his eyes, she couldn't say no. Okay, she said. We do this together. Together, he repeated. And for the first time in 9 years, Elena let herself believe it might actually be possible. They spent the next 3 days chasing ghosts. Elena pulled every transaction from the last 6 months, cross-referenced delivery routes, and built a timeline of every shipment that had moved through Adrian's territory. Adrian worked his contacts, asking quiet questions, applying pressure in places where pressure usually produced answers. They met in the warehouse after hours, away from prying eyes, and slowly the picture started to come together. Someone was playing them. Not just Adrian, both of them. And whoever it was knew exactly how Marcus's operation worked. It's too clean, Elena said on the third night, staring at her laptop screen. Whoever did this knew our codes, our routes, our timing. This isn't some outside crew trying to hijack a shipment. This is internal. Adrian leaned against the desk, arms crossed. You're saying it's one of us? I'm saying it has to be. No one else has this kind of access. Marcus is going to lose his mind when he finds out. If he finds out, we don't have proof yet, just patterns. Patterns are enough to get people killed in this business. Elena looked up at him. Then we better be sure before we say anything. Adrian nodded, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. This was eating at him. The idea that someone in Marcus's inner circle was betraying them. That someone he trusted had set him up. There's a meeting tomorrow, Adrian said. All department heads. Marcus wants a status update on the South Side operations. You gonna tell him? Not yet. But I need you there. If someone slips, if anyone reacts wrong when I bring up the shipment issues, I need you watching. You want me to read the room? Yeah. Elena closed her laptop. What if no one reacts? What if whoever's doing this is smart enough to keep their face neutral? Then we keep digging. Adrian pushed off the desk and walked to the window. But we're running out of time. Marcus is already suspicious about the revenue drops. If he starts his own investigation and finds the swapped shipment before we figure out who's behind it, he'll think you're covering something up. Exactly. Elena stood and walked over to him. Outside, the city stretched out in the dark, indifferent to their problems. We'll figure it out. Adrian glanced at her. You sound sure. I have to be. Otherwise this whole thing falls apart. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Why are you helping me? The question caught her off guard. What? You could have told Marcus the second I called you. Could have protected yourself, stayed out of it, but you didn't. Why? Elena didn't have a good answer. Or rather, she had too many answers, and none of them were safe to say out loud. Because she trusted him. Because she couldn't walk away from him, not again. Because somewhere in the last 3 weeks, the walls she'd built between them had started crumbling, and she didn't know how to rebuild them. Because you asked, she said finally. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. Elena, don't. She stepped back. We have a meeting tomorrow. Let's just focus on that. He didn't push, just nodded and let her leave. But when Elena got home that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd said her name. Like it hurt. Like he was holding on to something he knew he couldn't keep. The meeting the next day was brutal. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable as the department heads gave their reports. Elena sat 2 seats down, taking notes and watching faces. Adrian was across from her, calm and controlled, but she could see the tension in the set of his jaw. When it was his turn, Adrian ran through the numbers. Revenue, distribution, personnel updates. Everything sounded fine, professional. But when he mentioned a delay in one of the recent shipments, Elena saw it. A flicker. Just for a second. The man at the far end of the table, Vincent, one of Marcus's logistics coordinators, shifted in his seat. His hand twitched toward his phone, then stopped. Elena kept her expression neutral, but her pulse spiked. She glanced at Adrian. He'd seen it too. The meeting continued. Marcus asked questions, people answered, and nothing seemed out of place. But when it ended and people started filtering out, Adrian caught Elena's eye and tilted his head slightly toward the door. She waited 5 minutes, then followed him downstairs to an empty hallway. "Vincent," Adrian said the second she rounded the corner. "I saw. He's been with Marcus for 4 years, handles route logistics, shipment schedules, access to everything," Elena finished. "Yeah." Adrian's jaw tightened. If he's the one who swapped the codes, he'd know exactly how to cover his tracks. "We need proof." "I know. How do we get it without tipping him off?" Adrian thought for a moment. "I can pull his access log, see if there's anything unusual, but if he's smart, he'll have bounced the authorization through someone else's credentials. Then we follow the money. If he's working with someone outside the organization, there'll be a payment trail. Offshore accounts, shell companies, something. Can you track that?" Elena nodded. "Give me 24 hours. Marcus is going to want another update by Friday. Then we work fast." Adrian looked at her, and for a second neither of them spoke. Then he said quietly, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not running this time." Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him she wasn't doing this for him, that she was doing it because it was the right thing, because Marcus deserved to know who was betraying him, but that would have been a lie. "Let's just find Vincent," she said. She spent the rest of the day buried in financial records. Vincent's official salary was clean, modest, appropriate for his position. But Elena had learned a long time ago that people who stole didn't deposit their gains in the same account they used to pay rent. They hid it, layered it, made it look legitimate. So she started looking for the layers. By midnight, she found the first thread, a payment to a consulting firm that didn't exist. The company had been registered 6 months ago, right around the time the revenue discrepancies started. The address listed was a P.O. box. The owner was a name she didn't recognize. But when she cross-referenced the bank account tied to the fake company, the pattern became clear. Regular deposits, always under $10,000, always from different sources within Marcus's operation. Vincent was skimming, and he'd been doing it for months. Elena called Adrian. "I found it," she said when he picked up. "You're sure?" "Positive. He's running money through a shell company. I can prove it." Adrian exhaled. "Send me everything. I'll bring it to Marcus in the morning." "Adrian, wait." "What?" Elena hesitated. "If Vincent finds out we're on to him before we can lock this down, he could run. Or worse." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to be careful how we do this. Marcus is going to want blood when he sees this, and if Vincent panics, he's not going to have time to panic. I'll make sure of it." "Adrian, Elena, this guy set me up. He tried to make it look like I was stealing from Marcus. I'm not giving him a chance to do it again." She understood. She did. But something about this felt wrong, too easy, like they were missing a piece. "Just promise me you'll be careful," she said. "I will. I mean it." "I know." His voice softened. "I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up before she could say anything else. Elena sat in the dark, staring at her phone, and tried to shake the feeling that they were walking into something they didn't fully understand. Adrian went to Marcus first thing the next morning. Elena wasn't there. Adrian had insisted on handling it alone, but she got the text an hour later. "Adrian, Marcus knows. He's bringing Vincent in for questioning." Elena, "When?" Adrian, "Tonight. Wants both of us there." Elena's stomach twisted. She'd known this was coming, but knowing didn't make it easier. Marcus didn't do questioning lightly, and if Vincent was guilty, which he was, this wasn't going to end well for him. She showed up at the warehouse at 8. Marcus was already there, along with Adrian and 2 men she recognized as enforcers. Vincent hadn't arrived yet. Marcus looked at her when she walked in. "You're sure about this?" "Positive. The transactions are all there. He's been siphoning money for months." "And the shipment?" "We traced the reroute authorization back to his access code. He tried to cover it, but the digital trail doesn't lie." Marcus nodded slowly, his expression cold. "Good work." Elena didn't feel good about it. 20 minutes later, Vincent arrived. He walked in calm, unsuspecting, and the second he saw Marcus's face, he knew. "Sit down," Marcus said. Vincent's eyes darted to the door. One of the enforcers moved to block it. I said, sit. Vincent sat. Marcus slid a folder across the table. You want to explain this? Vincent opened the folder. His face went white. I don't. He stopped, then tried again. I don't know what this is. Really? Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. Because it looks like you've been stealing from me for 6 months, and it looks like you tried to frame Adrian for a botched shipment to cover your tracks. No, I didn't. Don't lie to me. Marcus leaned forward. I have the transaction records. I have the access logs. I have everything. So you're going to tell me the truth, or this gets a lot worse for you. Vincent looked at Adrian, then at Elena, desperation creeping into his eyes. It wasn't my idea. Marcus went still. What? I didn't. Someone approached me, told me if I helped them, they'd make it worth my while. I needed the money, okay? My kid's sick, the medical bills. I don't care about your excuses, Marcus cut him off. Who approached you? Vincent hesitated. Who? I don't know his name. We only communicated online. He knew things about your operation, about shipments, routes. He said if I didn't help him, he'd make sure you found out I'd been skimming small amounts to cover my kids' treatments. Elena's chest tightened. He blackmailed you. Yeah. Vincent's voice cracked. I'm sorry, I didn't want to, but I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, Marcus said coldly, and you made the wrong one. Please, Marcus, Marcus stood. Get him out of here. The enforcers moved. Vincent started shouting, pleading, but they dragged him out anyway. The door slammed shut and the room went silent. Marcus turned to Adrian. You believe him? About being blackmailed? Yeah. About not knowing who's behind it? I don't know. Elena? She thought about it. If someone wanted to destabilize your operation from the inside, Vincent would be a good place to start. Access to logistics, desperate enough to be manipulated. But whoever's pulling the strings knew exactly how to play them. Which means they know how we work. Marcus's jaw tightened. They know our vulnerabilities. Adrian's expression darkened. You think it's someone internal? I think it's someone who wants us looking in the wrong direction. Marcus turned to Elena. I need you to dig deeper. Find out who Vincent was communicating with. Trace the messages, the payments, everything. I'll start tonight. Good. Marcus looked at Adrian. And you. I want security doubled on all shipments. If someone's targeting us, they're not done. Already on it. Marcus nodded, then walked out without another word. Elena and Adrian stood in the empty room, the weight of what just happened settling over them. This isn't over, Elena said quietly. No, it's not. Whoever's behind this, they're smart. And they're patient. Adrian looked at her. You think they know we're on to them? I think they're counting on it. That night, Elena went home and pulled every piece of communication she could find tied to Vincent's accounts. Most of it was encrypted, but she'd dealt with encryption before. Just took time. By 3 a.m, she'd cracked the first message. It was short, clinical. Instructions for rerouting the shipment, along with the access codes Vincent would need. But at the bottom, there was a signature, not a name, a symbol. 3 overlapping circles. Elena stared at it, her blood running cold. She'd seen that symbol before. Years ago, back when their father was still running things. It belonged to a rival organization, one that had tried to take over their territory and failed. Their father had crushed them, scattered what was left, and everyone assumed they were gone. But if that symbol was showing up now, it meant they weren't gone. They were rebuilding, and they were coming for Marcus. Elena grabbed her phone and called Adrian. It's 4 a.m, he answered, his voice rough with sleep. I know who's behind this. That woke him up. What? The organization that tried to take down my father 15 years ago. They're back, and they're using Vincent to get to Marcus. There was a long pause. Then Adrian said, I'm coming over. No, meet me at the warehouse. We need to tell Marcus. Elena, it's the middle of the night. I don't care. If they're making a move, we need to be ready. Okay, I'll be there in 20. Elena hung up, grabbed her laptop, and headed for the door. She didn't see the car following her until it was too late. The first sign something was wrong was when her brakes didn't respond. Elena hit the pedal and nothing happened. Her car kept rolling forward, picking up speed as the hill sloped down toward the intersection ahead. Panic spiked. She pumped the brakes. Nothing. She yanked the emergency brake. The car shuddered, but didn't slow. The light ahead turned red. Cross-traffic moved into the intersection. Elena swerved hard, clipping the curb and bouncing onto the sidewalk. Her car slammed into a streetlight, and the impact threw her forward. The airbag deployed, slamming into her chest, and everything went white. When her vision cleared, her ears were ringing and her ribs screamed with pain. She fumbled for her seatbelt, got it off, and shoved the door open. She stumbled out onto the pavement, gasping. A black SUV pulled up beside her. Elena's heart stopped. She turned to run, but someone grabbed her from behind, yanking her backward. She fought, kicking and clawing, but there were two of them and her head was still spinning from the crash. A cloth clamped over her mouth and nose. Chemical smell. Sweet and wrong. Elena's vision blurred. Her legs gave out. The last thing she heard before everything went dark was a voice saying, "Get her in the car." When she woke up, she was tied to a chair in a room she didn't recognize. Her head pounded. Her ribs ached. Her wrists were bound behind her back with zip ties that cut into her skin. She blinked, trying to focus, and took in her surroundings. Concrete walls. A single light overhead. No windows. A basement. Or a warehouse. Somewhere no one would hear her scream. The door opened. A man walked in. Mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. He looked at her the way someone might look at a problem they were about to solve. "Miss Hayes," he said, "I'm glad you're awake." Elena's mouth was dry. "Who are you?" "Someone your father crossed a long time ago." He pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. "And someone your brother is about to cross again if he doesn't listen." "What do you want?" "I want Marcus to understand that Chicago doesn't belong to him anymore. It belongs to people who know how to run it properly." He leaned forward. "And you're going to help me make that clear." "I'm not helping you with anything." The man smiled. "You don't have a choice." Elena's heart was racing, but she kept her voice steady. "If you think Marcus is going to negotiate because you grabbed me, you don't know him very well." "Oh, I know him. I know he's smart, calculated, and I know he cares about you more than he lets on." The man stood. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to send him a message, and when he gets it, he's going to have a decision to make. Give me what I want or lose you. He'll kill you. Maybe. But by the time he finds me, you'll already be dead." The man walked to the door, then paused and looked back. "For what it's worth, this isn't personal. It's just business." He left. Elena sat in the dark, her mind racing. She didn't know where she was, didn't know how long she'd been out. But she knew one thing. She wasn't waiting for Marcus to save her. She pulled against the zip ties, testing them. Tight, but not impossible. She had to get out. Had to warn Marcus before this maniac made his move. She had to survive. And she had to do it on her own. Elena worked the zip ties for what felt like hours, ignoring the pain as the plastic cut deeper into her wrists. She twisted, pulled, angled her hands until her fingers were numb. Finally, she felt one of the ties start to give. She pulled harder. The plastic snapped. Her hands were free. She stood, her legs shaky, and looked around the room. One door, no other exits. She tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. Elena pressed her ear to the door and listened. Voices. Footsteps. At least two people outside. She stepped back and considered her options. She could wait for them to come back and try to fight her way out, or she could find another way. Her eyes landed on the light fixture overhead. Old, probably not wired properly. She dragged the chair over, climbed up, and yanked the bulb free. The room went dark. Then she waited. It didn't take long. The door opened and a flashlight beam cut through the darkness. "What the hell?" Elena swung the chair. It connected with the man's head, and he went down hard. She grabbed the flashlight, slammed the door shut behind her, and ran. The hallway outside was narrow, concrete, exactly what she'd expected. She didn't know which way led out, so she picked a direction and moved fast. Behind her, shouting. They knew she was loose. She rounded a corner and saw stairs. She took them two at a time, her lungs burning. At the top, another hallway. And at the end, a door with light bleeding through the cracks. Elena ran for it. She hit the door at full speed and it burst open into a loading bay. Night air, freedom. She didn't stop. She ran across the bay into the alley beyond and kept running until her legs gave out. She collapsed against a wall, gasping, her whole body shaking. Her phone was gone. Her car was totaled. She had no idea where she was. But she was alive, and she wasn't done fighting. Elena flagged down a cab 20 minutes later and gave the driver the address of the warehouse. She didn't have money, didn't have ID, but she convinced him to take her anyway with a promise that someone would pay him when they arrived. By the time they pulled up, it was almost dawn. The warehouse lights were on. Adrian's car was out front. Elena stumbled out of the cab. Adrian must have seen her through the window, because he was outside in seconds, his face going white when he saw her. "Elena, what the hell happened?" She couldn't answer. Her legs gave out, and he caught her before she hit the ground. "Get Marcus," Adrian shouted to someone inside. Then, quieter, to her, "I've got you. You're okay. I've got you." Elena closed her eyes and let herself believe it. Marcus arrived while Adrian was carrying her inside. Elena heard her brother's voice before she saw him, sharp and furious, demanding to know what happened. Adrian set her down on a couch in the office upstairs, and Marcus crouched in front of her, his hands gripping her shoulders like he needed to confirm she was real. "Who did this?" Marcus's voice was low, dangerous. Elena's throat was raw. "The people who went after Dad, they're back." Marcus went completely still. "You're sure?" "I saw their symbol, 3 overlapping circles, same one from 15 years ago." "That's impossible. We destroyed them." "You scattered them. They regrouped." Elena winced as she shifted, her ribs protesting. "They grabbed me after I left my apartment, sabotaged my brakes, ran me off the road. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair in some basement." Adrian's face had gone white. "How did you get out?" "Broke the zip ties, knocked out a guard, ran." Marcus looked at Adrian. "Get a medic here, now." "I'm fine," Elena said. "You're not fine. You're bleeding." She looked down. Her wrists were torn up from the zip ties, and there was blood on her shirt from where the airbag had split her lip. She hadn't even noticed. "I'll survive," she said. "We have bigger problems." Marcus stood, his jaw set. "What did they want?" "They want Chicago. They think you're vulnerable, and they're using me to prove it." Elena met her brother's eyes. "The guy who grabbed me said he was sending you a message, that you'd have to choose between giving them what they want or losing me." "He's dead," Marcus said flatly. "All of them are." "Marcus, I don't negotiate with people who touch my family." Elena understood the impulse. She felt it too, the rage, the need to hit back. But rage without strategy was just noise. "If you go after them blind, you're playing into their hands," she said. "They want you reactive. They want you making mistakes." "She's right," Adrian said quietly. He'd been standing by the window, his expression unreadable, but now he turned to face them. "We need to know who we're dealing with, how many, where they're operating, who's funding them." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded once, sharp and controlled. "Then we find out. Fast." A medic showed up 20 minutes later and patched Elena up, bandaged her wrists, checked her ribs, gave her something for the pain. She refused anything stronger than ibuprofen. She needed her head clear. By the time the medic left, the sun was coming up. Marcus had pulled in his top people, and the warehouse was buzzing with controlled chaos. Everyone was looking for answers, tracking the symbol, reaching out to contacts, pulling surveillance footage from the area where Elena had been grabbed. Adrian stayed close. He didn't say much, but Elena could feel the tension rolling off him in waves. Every time someone walked past, his hand moved toward the gun at his waist. He was wound tight, ready to snap. "You should get some rest," Elena said quietly. He looked at her like she'd suggested he'd jump off a bridge. "Not happening." "Adrian, they took you, Elena. They could have killed you. So no, I'm not resting until we find every single one of them." She wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, that he couldn't have known, but she could see in his eyes that it wouldn't matter. He'd already decided he'd failed her. "I got out," she said. "I'm here. I'm okay." "You shouldn't have had to get yourself out." "But I did, and I'm fine." Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't respond, just turned back to the window. Elena let it go. There were bigger fights to pick. By midday, they had a lead. One of Marcus's contacts recognized the symbol and connected it to a warehouse on the south side that had changed hands 6 months ago. The new owners were a shell company, but the real buyers had ties to the organization their father had dismantled. Marcus assembled a team. 8 men, all armed, all loyal. Adrian insisted on going. Elena knew better than to argue with either of them. "You're staying here," Marcus said to her. "Like hell I am." "Elena, they grabbed me, Marcus. I'm not sitting on the sidelines while you go after them." "You're hurt." "I can still shoot." Marcus looked at Adrian, who shrugged. "She's not going to listen." "No, I'm not." Elena stood, ignoring the way her ribs screamed. "So either I come with you or I follow you. Your choice." Marcus exhaled through his nose, the way he did when he was furious but knew he'd already lost. "Fine, but you stay behind cover and you don't do anything stupid." "Define stupid." "Elena, I'll be careful, I promise." Marcus didn't look convinced, but he let it go. They moved out an hour later, 3 cars, staggered departure, different routes to avoid being followed. Elena rode with Adrian, who drove in silence, his hands tight on the wheel. "You don't have to do this," she said. "Yes, I do." "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "Because if something happens to you, I'm not going to forgive myself." Elena's chest tightened. "Adrian, I should have been there. I should have... You didn't know. No one knew. I should have been paying attention. Should have seen this coming." "How? We didn't even know they existed until last night." Adrian's jaw worked. "Doesn't matter." Elena reached over and put her hand on his arm. He flinched, but he didn't pull away. "I'm here," she said. "I'm alive. That's what matters." He glanced at her, something raw and unguarded in his eyes. "If they'd killed you, they didn't." "But they could have." "Yeah, they could have. But I'm not going to live my life scared of what could have happened. And neither should you." Adrian didn't respond, but his grip on the wheel loosened slightly. They pulled up to the warehouse 15 minutes later. It looked abandoned, broken windows, rusted metal siding, weeds growing through cracks in the pavement. But Elena knew better. Abandoned places in this part of the city were never really abandoned. Marcus parked 2 blocks away. Everyone got out, checked their weapons, and moved into position. Adrian stayed close to Elena, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. "You remember the plan?" Marcus asked. Adrian nodded. 2 teams. One takes the front, one circles around back. We move on your signal. And if things go sideways, we adapt. Marcus looked at Elena. "You stay with Adrian. No heroics." "I know. I mean it." "So do I." Marcus didn't look convinced, but he signaled his team forward. They moved through the shadows, quiet and controlled. Elena's heart was pounding, adrenaline sharpening every sound, every movement. She'd been in situations like this before, back when their father was still alive and she was too young to know better. But this felt different, more personal. They reached the side entrance. Adrian tested the door. Unlocked. He looked at Marcus, who nodded. They went in. The interior was dark, lit only by slivers of daylight filtering through cracks in the roof. It smelled like rust and decay. Elena moved carefully, her gun raised, scanning every corner. Voices ahead. Low, muffled. Marcus held up a fist. Everyone stopped. He signaled Adrian to take point. Adrian moved forward, Elena right behind him. They reached a doorway that opened into a larger room, and what Elena saw made her blood run cold. 6 men, all armed, and in the center of the room, tied to a chair, Vincent. He was barely conscious, his face bruised and swollen. One of the men was standing over him, shouting questions Elena couldn't quite make out. "They're interrogating him," Adrian whispered. "Why?" "Because they think he knows more than he told us." Marcus moved up beside them, his expression grim. "We take them now, fast and clean." Adrian nodded. Marcus counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. They moved. The first shots were deafening in the enclosed space. Elena dropped to one knee behind a stack of crates, her pulse spiking as bullets tore through the air. She fired twice, hitting one of the men in the shoulder. He went down hard. Adrian was moving, fast and controlled, taking out targets with the kind of precision that came from years of practice. Marcus was right behind him, covering his flank. It was over in less than a minute. 6 men down, one bleeding but alive. The rest weren't getting back up. Marcus walked over to Vincent and cut him loose. Vincent slumped forward, coughing. "You good?" Marcus asked. Vincent nodded weakly. They wanted to know who else was helping you. I didn't tell them anything. Good. Marcus looked at the man who was still breathing. Get him up. Adrian hauled the guy to his feet, shoving him against the wall. Blood was pouring from a wound in his leg, and his face was pale with pain. Who's running this? Marcus asked. The man spat blood. Go to hell. Marcus didn't flinch. He pulled his gun and pressed it to the man's kneecap. I'll ask one more time. Who's running this? The man's bravado cracked. I don't know his name. We just get orders. Payments. That's it. Where are the orders coming from? Different places. He moves around. Give me something useful, or you're not walking out of here. The man's eyes darted to Elena. He wanted her. Said if we grabbed Marcus's sister, it'd force his hand. Make him vulnerable. Why? Because you love her. Everyone knows that. You'd do anything to get her back. Marcus's expression didn't change, but Elena saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Marcus, Adrian said quietly. Marcus didn't move. Marcus, we need him alive. Slowly, Marcus lowered the gun. Get him out of here. I want everything he knows. Adrian nodded and dragged the man toward the door. Two of Marcus's guys followed. Marcus turned to Elena. You okay? Yeah. You sure? I said I'm fine. Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. Let's get out of here before someone calls the cops. They left Vincent with the medic and regrouped at the warehouse. The injured man was in a locked room downstairs, being questioned by people who knew how to make people talk. Elena didn't ask what methods they were using. She didn't want to know. She sat in Marcus's office, staring at her hands, trying to process everything that had just happened. They'd walked into a trap and walked out alive. That should have felt like a win. It didn't. Adrian came in without knocking. He looked exhausted, his shirt stained with someone else's blood. They get anything useful? Elena asked. Not yet, but they will. He sat down across from her. You did good back there. I shot a guy. You did what you had to do. Elena looked at him. Does it ever get easier? No. She appreciated the honesty. They sat in silence for a while. Then Adrian said, When I saw you this morning, when you stumbled out of that cab, I thought I'd lost you. Elena's throat tightened. I'm hard to kill. Yeah, you are. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. But I don't want to keep testing that theory. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't do this anymore, pretending we're just colleagues, pretending I don't care if you live or die. I can't. Elena's heart was pounding. Adrian, I love you. The words came out raw, unfiltered. I've loved you since I was 23 years old, and I'm done pretending I don't. I'm done keeping my distance because Marcus says I should, or because you're scared of what it means. I'm done. Elena stared at him, her chest tight. You can't just... Why not? What's the worst that happens? Marcus gets pissed? He already knows. He's known for years. That's not... Then what is it? What's stopping you? I'm scared. The confession tore out of her louder than she intended. I'm scared that if I let myself love you again, something's going to rip us apart, that Marcus will make me choose, or someone will use you against me, or you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not worth it. Adrian stood and crossed the space between them in 2 steps. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. You are worth it, he said fiercely. You've always been worth it. And I don't care if Marcus approves, or if this makes things complicated, or if the whole damn world tries to tear us apart. I'm not losing you again. Elena's vision blurred. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. I'm asking you to stop running. I'm asking you to stay. I'm asking you to choose me. Her breath hitched. She wanted to say yes, wanted to throw herself into this and damn the consequences. But the fear was still there, clawing at her chest. I don't know if I can, she whispered. Adrian's thumb brushed her cheek. Then let me prove it to you. He kissed her. It wasn't careful or tentative. It was desperate, fierce, like he was trying to pour 9 years of longing into a single moment. Elena kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. She didn't care that they were in Marcus's office, didn't care who might walk in. All she cared about was this, him, here, real. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I'm not giving up on us, he said quietly. Not this time. Elena closed her eyes. Marcus is going to lose his mind. Let him. Adrian, I mean it. I don't care. I'm done hiding how I feel about you. Before Elena could respond, the door opened. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Elena's stomach dropped. She stepped back from Adrian, but it was too late. Marcus had seen everything. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Marcus said, "We need to talk." Elena opened her mouth, but Marcus held up a hand. "Not you, him." Adrian straightened. "Fine." "Marcus, don't," Elena started. "I said, not you." Marcus's tone left no room for argument. He looked at Adrian. "Downstairs. Now." Adrian glanced at Elena, something unreadable in his eyes. Then he followed Marcus out. Elena stood there, her heart hammering, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. She gave them 5 minutes. Then she went downstairs anyway. They were in the back hallway, voices raised. Elena stayed out of sight, but she could hear every word. "You said you were over it," Marcus was saying. "You said you'd moved on." "I lied." "You lied." "Yeah, I lied. Because you made it clear you didn't approve and I didn't want to lose my place here. But I'm done pretending." "She left, Adrian. She left you and didn't look back." "Because you told her to." Silence. Elena's chest tightened. She'd suspected Marcus had pushed her to leave, but hearing Adrian say it out loud made it real. "I did what I thought was best," Marcus said finally. "For both of you. You don't get to decide what's best for her. I'm her brother. I'm supposed to protect her. From what? From me? From getting hurt. From making a mistake she couldn't take back. She's not a kid anymore, Marcus. She can make her own choices. And what happens when this falls apart? When you two realize you're better off apart, I lose both of you. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. You're right, I don't. But I'm willing to risk it. The question is, are you?" Another silence. Then Marcus said quietly, "If you hurt her, I will kill you." "I know. I'm serious. So am I. I'm not going to hurt her. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she's safe and happy and knows she's loved. That's a promise." Elena's throat closed. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to keep quiet. "She's still scared," Marcus said. "I know, but I'm not giving up on her. She ran once. She could run again." "She won't." "How do you know?" "Because she came back and she's still here." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "If this blows up in my face, I'm blaming you." Adrian almost laughed. "Fair enough. I mean it. You two need to figure this out without dragging my operation into it. We will." "Good." Marcus paused. "And Adrian?" "Yeah? She's the only family I have left, so don't screw this up." "I won't." Elena heard footsteps. She ducked into a side room just as Marcus walked past. He didn't see her. Adrian appeared a moment later. He saw her immediately. "You were listening," he said. "Yeah." "How much did you hear?" "Enough." He walked over to her, and she saw the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. "You okay?" "I don't know." Elena looked up at him. "Did you mean it? What you said to Marcus?" "Every word. About spending the rest of your life making sure I'm safe and happy?" "Yeah." Elena's chest ached. "That's a big promise." "I know." "What if I'm not ready?" Adrian cupped her face, his touch gentle. "Then I'll wait. But I'm not walking away. Not again." Elena closed her eyes and leaned into him. For the first time in 9 years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" "Okay." She opened her eyes. "Let's try." Adrian smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made her heart stutter. Then he kissed her again, slower this time, like they had all the time in the world. When they finally pulled apart, Elena said, "We still have to deal with the people who tried to kill me." "I know. And Marcus is probably going to be weird about this for a while." "Probably. And we have no idea what we're doing." Adrian grinned. "Nope." Elena laughed despite herself. "This is a terrible idea. The best ones usually are." She shook her head, but she was smiling. For the first time since she came back to Chicago, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The wounded man downstairs gave them a name by midnight. Raymond Cormack, former lieutenant in the organization their father had crushed, now apparently running what was left of it. He'd been operating out of Detroit for the last decade, building resources, waiting for the right moment to come back. And when Elena returned to Chicago, he saw his opening. He thinks you're the weak point, Marcus said, staring at the information spread across his desk. He thinks if he takes you out, I'll fall apart. Elena leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He's not entirely wrong. Marcus looked up sharply. What? You care about me. That's not a weakness, but it's something people can use against you. He knows that. So what do you want me to do? Pretend I don't give a damn if you live or die? No. I want you to trust that I can handle myself. Elena met her brother's eyes. I got out of that basement on my own. I'm not helpless, Marcus. Stop treating me like I am. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just looked back at the files. Adrian was standing by the window, silent. He'd been quiet since the conversation with Marcus, processing whatever had been said between them. Elena wanted to ask, wanted to know exactly what her brother had threatened him with, but now wasn't the time. We need to end this, Adrian said finally. Cormac's not going to stop. He'll keep coming until one of us is dead. Agreed, Marcus said. So we find him and we finish it. He's in Detroit. We don't have the reach there that we do here. Then we bring him to us. Elena pushed off the wall. How? Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We give him what he wants, or make him think we are. It took Elena a second to understand. You want to use me as bait, not bait, leverage. We let him think he rattled us, that we're willing to negotiate. Then when he shows up, we kill him, Adrian finished. Elena looked between them. And you think he's dumb enough to fall for that? I think he's arrogant enough, Marcus said. He spent 15 years rebuilding. He's not going to pass up a chance to take me down face to face. It's risky. Everything we do is risky. Elena couldn't argue with that. They spent the next 2 days setting the trap. Marcus sent word through back channels that he was willing to talk, to negotiate terms, that the attack on Elena had shaken him, made him realize how vulnerable his operation was. It was a carefully constructed lie, designed to appeal to Cormac's ego. And it worked. Cormac agreed to a meeting. Neutral ground, 3 days out, limited security on both sides. Marcus set the location, a closed construction site on the edge of the city, open enough that an ambush would be obvious, isolated enough that witnesses wouldn't be a problem. Elena insisted on being there. Marcus fought her on it, but she didn't back down. He came after me, she said. I deserve to see this through. You deserve to stay alive. I will, but I'm not hiding while you handle my mess. Marcus looked at Adrian. Talk some sense into her. Adrian shrugged. She's right. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on her side. That's the deal now. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but he just sighed. Fine, but you both stay back. This is my play. The night of the meeting, Elena wore a vest under her jacket and carried a gun she hoped she wouldn't have to use. Adrian stayed close, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos of her thoughts. Marcus moved with calm precision, issuing orders, positioning his people, making sure every angle was covered. They arrived at the construction site an hour early. The skeletons of unfinished buildings loomed around them, dark and skeletal against the night sky. Marcus's team spread out, hidden but ready. Elena and Adrian waited in one of the partially completed structures, 3rd floor, with a clear view of the meeting point below. You nervous? Adrian asked. Terrified, Elena admitted. You? Same. She glanced at him. You're good at hiding it. Years of practice. He checked his gun, then looked at her. If this goes sideways, it won't. But if it does, Adrian, don't. I need you to know. He stopped, his jaw working. If something happens to me, if Cormac's people get through, nothing's gonna happen. Elena, just listen. He reached out and took her hand. If something happens, you run. You don't look back, you don't try to be a hero. You run, and you keep running until you're safe. Elena's throat tightened. I'm not leaving you. You will if I tell you to. Like hell. Adrian's grip tightened. Please, I need to know you'll be okay. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the fear he was trying so hard to hide. He'd already lost her once. He wasn't going to survive losing her again. Okay, she whispered. If it goes that bad, I'll run. He exhaled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Thank you. She leaned over and kissed him, quick and fierce. But it's not going to come to that. You sound sure. I have to be. Headlights cut through the darkness below. 3 cars moving slowly. They stopped at the designated point and men got out. 6 of them, all armed. And in the center, Raymond Cormac. He was older than Elena expected, mid-50s, with gray hair and the kind of face that looked carved from stone. He moved with confidence, like a man who'd never doubted himself a day in his life. Marcus stepped out from the shadows, flanked by 2 of his people. He looked calm, controlled, every inch the man who ran Chicago's underworld. Cormac, Marcus said. Hayes. Cormac smiled. It's been a long time. Not long enough. I suppose not. Cormac's eyes scanned the area, taking in the construction site, the shadows. You bring your sister? She's safe. That's not what I asked. And I don't answer to you. Cormac's smile widened. Still arrogant, just like your father. My father crushed you. I'm just here to finish the job. Are you? Cormac took a step forward. Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who asked for this meeting. You're the one who wanted to negotiate. I wanted to see if you were stupid enough to show up. Turns out you are. Cormac's expression darkened. You think this is a game? I think you're a relic who doesn't know when to quit. And I think you're a fool who doesn't realize how much trouble he's in. Cormac gestured, and his men raised their weapons. I could kill you right now. End this. You could try. Marcus's people stepped out of the shadows, guns trained on Cormac's crew. More appeared on the rooftops, in the windows. Within seconds, Cormac was surrounded. His smile faded. You wanted to send me a message, Marcus said quietly. You grabbed my sister, sabotaged my shipments, tried to make me look weak. So here's my message. You come after my family again, and I will burn everything you've built to the ground. Your people, your territory, your legacy. All of it. Cormac's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake 15 years ago when you thought you could take my father's empire. And now, when you thought you could take mine. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Marcus raised his hand. Gunfire erupted. It happened fast. Too fast for Elena to process. Cormac's men went down. Marcus's people moved with brutal efficiency, and within seconds it was over. Cormac himself was on his knees, blood pouring from a wound in his shoulder. Marcus walked over and crouched in front of him. You're done, Cormac spat blood. You think killing me changes anything? There are others. There are always others. Let them come. I'll handle them the same way I handled you. Marcus stood and nodded to one of his men. The final shot echoed through the construction site. And then there was silence. Elena realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, her hands shaking. It's over, Adrian said quietly. Yeah. Elena's voice came out rough. It's over. They stayed there for another 20 minutes while Marcus's people cleaned up. By the time they left, there was no trace of what had happened. Just another empty construction site in a city full of them. Marcus drove Elena and Adrian back to the warehouse himself. No one spoke. There wasn't much to say. When they arrived, Marcus turned to Elena. You okay? I will be, he nodded. Good, because we need to talk. Elena's stomach tightened. About what? About what happens next? Marcus looked at Adrian. Both of you. They followed him inside, up to his office. Marcus poured himself a drink, then offered the bottle to Adrian, who took it. Elena declined. Marcus sat down behind his desk and studied them for a long moment. I'm not going to lie, I hate this. Elena's chest tightened. Marcus, let me finish. He took a sip of his drink. I hate that you two are together. I hate that it complicates everything. And I hate that I can't do a damn thing about it because you're both adults and I don't get to control your lives. But, Elena prompted, but I'm also not blind. I see the way you look at each other. And I know, I've always known, that Adrian would die for you. Marcus looked at Adrian. Wouldn't you? Without hesitation, Adrian said. Marcus nodded slowly. Then I guess I have to trust that you're not going to screw this up. Elena blinked. You're okay with this? I didn't say that. I said I'm not going to fight it. There's a difference. I'll take it, Adrian said. Marcus almost smiled. You better take care of her, because if you don't, you'll kill me. I know. You've made that very clear. Good. Marcus stood. Now get out of my office. I have work to do. Elena and Adrian left, and once they were in the hallway, Elena let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. That went better than expected, Adrian said. He threatened to kill you, twice. Yeah, but he didn't actually kill me, so I'm calling it a win. Elena laughed despite herself. You're insane. Probably. Adrian pulled her close. But I'm yours. She looked up at him, and the weight of the last few weeks, the fear, the fighting, the near-death experiences, finally started to lift. Yeah, she said softly. You are. Over the next few months, things settled into a new normal. Cormac's organization fell apart without him, the remaining members scattering or swearing loyalty to Marcus. The Southside operation stabilized. Vincent recovered and took a desk job, grateful to be alive. Elena stayed in Chicago. She moved out of the sterile downtown apartment and into a place with actual character. Hardwood floors, big windows, a kitchen she actually wanted to cook in. Adrian helped her move, complained about the number of boxes she owned, and then stayed. He didn't officially move in. He just never left. Marcus noticed but didn't comment. He was busy expanding into new territory, negotiating deals, building something that looked more like a legitimate empire and less like the criminal operation their father had run. Elena helped where she could, cleaning the books, structuring investments, making sure the money was clean. And slowly, the tension between Marcus and Adrian eased. They'd never be best friends again, not the way they were before. But they found a rhythm, a mutual respect built on the understanding that they both wanted the same thing, to protect Elena, to protect the organization, to build something that would last. One Saturday in early spring, Adrian asked Elena to go for a drive. No destination, just out of the city. Elena agreed, curious but not suspicious. They ended up at a garden outside the city, the same one where they'd gone on their first date 10 years ago. Elena recognized it the second they pulled up. Adrian, just walk with me, he said. They walked the paths surrounded by blooming flowers and the soft hum of bees. It was peaceful, quiet, the kind of place that felt disconnected from the chaos of their lives. Adrian stopped at a bench overlooking a pond. You remember this place? Of course I do. We came here the night I told you I loved you for the first time. Elena's throat tightened. I remember. I was terrified. Thought you were going to laugh at me. I almost cried. I know. You had that look on your face, like you didn't believe me. I didn't. Not at first. Adrian turned to face her. Do you believe me now? Elena looked at him, at the man who'd waited for her, who'd fought for her, who'd chosen her even when it cost him everything. Yeah, she said. I do. Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Elena's heart stopped. I'm not good with speeches, Adrian said, and I'm probably going to screw this up, but I need you to know you're it for me. You've always been it, and I don't want to spend another day pretending we're not building a life together. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, exactly her style. Elena Hayes, Adrian said quietly, will you marry me? Elena's vision blurred. She'd imagined this moment 100 times over the years, but she'd always convinced herself it would never happen, that she'd lost her chance, that love wasn't enough. But standing here, looking at Adrian, she realized she'd been wrong about a lot of things. Love wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, about choosing each other even when it was hard, about building something real out of all the broken pieces. Yes, she whispered. Adrian's face broke into the kind of smile that made her chest ache. He slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her like they had all the time in the world. When they finally pulled apart, Elena was crying. You okay? Adrian asked. Yeah, I'm just... She laughed through the tears. I can't believe this is real. It's real, I promise. Marcus is going to lose his mind. Probably, but he'll get over it. You sound sure. I am. Because at the end of the day, he wants you to be happy. And you're happy with me, right? Elena looked at him. at the man who'd never given up on her, even when she'd given up on herself. "Yeah," she said, "I really am." They told Marcus a week later over dinner at his house. He didn't look surprised. "You knew," Elena said. "Of course I knew. Adrian's been carrying that ring around for a month." Adrian glared at him. "You saw it? You're not as subtle as you think." Elena laughed. "And you're okay with this?" Marcus set down his fork and looked at her. "I'm never going to be thrilled about you marrying my right-hand man, but I've watched you two dance around each other for 10 years, and I'm tired of pretending I don't see it. So yeah, I'm okay with it." "Really? Really? Just—" He pointed at Adrian. "Don't make me regret this." "I won't." "Good." Marcus raised his glass. "To family, even when they're complicated as hell." Elena raised her glass too, and for the first time in years, she felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. The wedding was small, just close family and a few trusted people from Marcus's organization. Elena wore a simple dress, Adrian wore a suit that actually fit, and Marcus walked her down the aisle with an expression that was equal parts pride and resignation. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Marcus muttered, "Don't tempt me," and Elena elbowed him in the ribs. Adrian's vows were short and honest. He promised to love her, to protect her, to be the person she could count on when everything else fell apart. Elena's vows were longer, messier, and she cried halfway through. But she got the words out. Words about second chances, about finding home in a person instead of a place, about choosing love even when it scared her. When they kissed, the small crowd cheered. Marcus clapped, reluctant but genuine. And Elena realized that this messy, complicated, imperfect life was exactly what she'd been running from, and exactly what she'd needed all along. A year after the wedding, Elena stood in the office of the community center she and Adrian had founded. It was a modest building on the south side, offering job training, financial literacy programs, and support for families trying to get out of dangerous situations. The kind of place she wished had existed when she was younger. Marcus had funded the initial setup, though he'd made it clear it was a one-time thing. After that, Elena and Adrian were on their own. They'd applied for grants, held fundraisers, and slowly built something sustainable. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. And it was theirs. Adrian walked in carrying coffee and looking tired but happy. "We got the grant." Elena looked up sharply. "The big one?" "Yeah, 50,000 for the next year. Renewable if we hit our benchmarks." Elena broke into a grin. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." He set the coffee down and pulled her into a hug. "We did it. We really did." They stood there for a moment, just holding each other. Outside, the city hummed with life. Imperfect, chaotic, beautiful. "You ever think about how we got here?" Elena asked. "All the time." "And?" Adrian pulled back and looked at her. "I think we got lucky, and I think we fought like hell for it, and I think it was worth every second." Elena smiled. "Yeah, me too." That night, they went to Marcus's house for dinner. It had become a tradition. Every Sunday, the three of them sitting around the same table, arguing about work, teasing each other, pretending they weren't all a little bit broken and held together by sheer stubbornness. Marcus was in a good mood, which meant he'd closed a deal he was proud of. He poured wine, ordered too much food, and spent half the meal giving Adrian a hard time about something inconsequential. Elena watched them, these two men who'd shaped her life in different ways, and felt something settle in her chest. Gratitude, maybe? Or just the quiet certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. "You're smiling," Marcus said, interrupting her thoughts. "I'm allowed to smile." "Yeah, but you've got that look, the one you get when you're thinking too hard." "I'm not thinking, I'm just—" She looked at Adrian, then at Marcus. "I'm just happy." Marcus's expression softened. "Good. You deserve it. So do you. I'm working on it." Later, when they were leaving, Marcus pulled Elena aside. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For coming back. For staying. For not giving up on us." Elena's throat tightened. "You're my brother. I was never going to give up on you." "I know, but I'm still grateful." She hugged him, hard, and he hugged her back. When they got in the car, Adrian glanced at her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm good." "You sure?" Elena looked out the window at the city lights, at the life they'd built together, at the future stretching out in front of them. Yeah, she said. I'm sure. 6 months later, Elena found out she was pregnant. She told Adrian first, on a quiet Tuesday morning when they were both running late for work. He stared at the test in her hand for a full 10 seconds before breaking into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. Are you serious? Very. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. Marcus is going to lose his mind. In a good way or a bad way? Both. Definitely both. They told Marcus that weekend. He looked at them, looked at Elena's hand resting on her still flat stomach, and then sat down heavily on the couch. You're kidding. Nope, Elena said. I'm going to be an uncle. Yep. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. I don't know the first thing about kids. Neither do we, Adrian said. But we'll figure it out. Marcus looked at Elena, and she saw something shift in his expression, something soft and unguarded. Congratulations, he said quietly. Really? I'm happy for you. Elena sat down next to him. You're going to be the best uncle. I'm going to spoil that kid rotten. I'm counting on it. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Elena had morning sickness that lasted well into the second trimester, and by the third she was exhausted and uncomfortable and ready to be done. But Adrian was there every step of the way, holding her hair back when she was sick, rubbing her feet when they swelled, reminding her to breathe when the anxiety got too loud. And when their daughter was born on a cold November night, screaming and perfect and impossibly small, Elena looked at Adrian and saw tears streaming down his face. She's beautiful, he whispered. Yeah, she is. They named her Grace, Grace Hayes Voss, a name that meant hope, forgiveness, second chances. Marcus showed up at the hospital the next day with flowers and a stuffed bear that was almost as big as the baby. He held Grace carefully, like she might break, and Elena saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Pure, unfiltered joy. She looks like you, Marcus said. She looks like Dad, Elena corrected. Marcus smiled. Yeah, she does. Over the next year, life became a beautiful mess. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, the constant fear that they were doing everything wrong. But also laughter, first smiles, the weight of Grace's tiny hand wrapped around Elena's finger. The community center kept growing. They added after-school programs, expanded the job training, hired more staff. It wasn't just a project anymore. It was a legacy. And on Grace's first birthday, surrounded by family and friends and people whose lives they'd touched, Elena realized something. She'd spent so much of her life running, from pain, from fear, from the possibility of losing the people she loved. But running hadn't kept her safe. It had just kept her alone. Staying, choosing to fight for the people and the life she wanted, that was what had saved her. She looked at Adrian, who was holding Grace and making faces that made her giggle. She looked at Marcus, who was arguing with someone about politics and clearly enjoying himself. She looked at the community center they'd built, the family they'd created, the life they'd fought so hard for. And she realized she wasn't running anymore. She was home. That night, after everyone had left and Grace was asleep, Elena and Adrian sat on the back porch of their house, watching the stars. You ever think about how different things could have been? Elena asked. All the time. And? Adrian took her hand. I think we got exactly where we were supposed to be. It just took us a while to get here. Elena smiled. Yeah, I think you're right. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived too much and loved too hard and somehow made it work anyway. And for the first time in her life, Elena wasn't afraid of what came next. Because whatever it was, they'd face it together, and that was enough.